Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's from TCG Discussions. Welcome to the first of 3 videos involving the ban list. The first one is going to be discussing the ban cards, as well as Gogeta, Xeno, and KP, and kind of like where they're at, and then like I'm going to give some deck recommendations based on the colors. The second video is going to be about the erratas and limits, and we're going to talk a little bit about some of the limits, obviously, because KP and Gogeta, Xeno contain some of those limits, as well as black and red support in general. And then we're gonna go a little bit, just talking about where those limits are still good, erratas as well. And then the third one's gonna be about top decks probably in every color and what to look forward to in set 17, if there's really anything to look forward to, which I think there is. So, and then look forward to set 17 box openings. See how much I can get. I'm hoping to get a case. Don't know if I will or not. I won't lie. I'm not really concerned about getting any SCRs in this this particular range of like the set. I just don't think any SCRs provide like any good range compared to what we already have. So yeah. All that to say, let's get into it. So starting off with fighting against Fate Secret ID, you guys know what I think about those cards. I think they were good bans. A lot of people are going to Man on a Mission, but I'm going to actually pitch a suggestion that I think is actually pretty good. Scientist Fu. It's a really old card. If you don't know what it is, Overwhelm 7, tap 1, energy, and you basically get to draw 2 cards and get a 25k double strike. So it's like a 25k double strike Champa in a sense, and it works a lot like another thwarting threat. So it can be pretty good, and I think it's a nice replacement Overwhelm for thwarting. It's going to net you some cards. It's not going to warp anything, obviously, because that would be stupid. But I think that it's a pretty good overall card and one that I would recommend playing. It's one I'm testing out. My wife's also testing it in her Red Raleigh deck, and it's seeing a lot of good results in its use in the decks that we're trying them in. So that's something I would do. Replacement for Secret ID, there is the Crit Vegeta 30k. I picked up the last of my foils. They just arrived in the mail the other day. For Dark Brawly. I think that one is now the default one to use in Dark Brawly alongside Beyond All Limits because it offers a versatility wide range. For Gogeta targets, Fearless Fusion's a pretty good replacement still for like the thwartings that you're missing because it went to 1, but yeah. So not a whole lot to talk about with those two, but we are going to get into Gogeta Xeno. No Marvelous Mind Thorning 1. Is the deck dead? I mean, pretty much I think so. I can't really see why it's not dead, because the 1-drops synergize with the leader and Pycon Unison. Now Pycon Unison is just virtually useless unless you want to do like a Weenie Rush spam-esque deck. But again, I don't think that that would be really the way to go with Gogeta Xeno, but we'd have to see. And without Marvelous Might to play them down, it feels pretty bad. And there's not much to talk about it, in that regard. Like, I just don't think Gogeta Xeno can really survive being a meta deck with the tools that every other deck has, as well as this one. So what's the new best black deck? So I think that if you're going for a aggro build, Dark Brawly is really good. I think that it can make a huge return. Hatchiyak, I think, is also super strong. It has just a lot of defense while being able to play bombs, and I think that it has a good place going forward in the meta. And then I think maybe some kind of mill deck, Black Saiyan mill leader that could play the Vegex core. Vegex as a leader is a pretty good look right now. I'm tinkering around with a build that I'm like trying to pin down a build that I like, and it's actually a lot more difficult than I thought it'd be. There was a overarm spam Vegeks version that I was planning on playing that abused the Demigod unison instead of the uh, Gotenks one that plays itself for free. And the idea is that like you could do multiple overarms in a turn and just generate a lot of like advantage, pressure, and basically like after turn two, like the idea was that like you would then going into your third turn play like Trunks out, and then just every turn use Trunks to like fuel overwhelm sixes along with your leader. And Trunks, the Super Saiyan God that like puts cards back, really synergizes well with Vegeks because it really puts a damper on your opponent milling you out and allows you to overwhelm and get the resources back. Overwhelm, get the resources back. So I've been taking around with that, and then I haven't found a list that I'm super happy with, if I can be honest. It's actually a little bit more difficult than I thought it would be. But yeah, you can kind of see how that would be good in a sense. And then there's Black Mass Saiyan, SS4 Goku, so on and so forth. So yeah, moving on, we're gonna talk about King Piccolo. Is the deck dead? Probably. So Piano is very interesting because Piano's a hard card to leave stick, especially with black being around. But I can also see a world where that one drop space is replaced by like hard searchers that still net you a card, or other ways to like net you advantage. Now, 100% KP takes a massive hit not having the Descendant of the King unison at 4. It's at 1, and I still think Descendant of the King needs to be banned. That unison is still too powerful. But I overall think that KP is kind of dead because it has a hard time generating and setting up advantage. I could see a world where you use you possibly use the Mass Saiyan from Another Dimension unison to still net those plus advantages, and then maybe use some other Demon Clan tech cards in the place of the Piano. But I don't know. It feels weird. Feels real weird. So, but I could still see like Symbol. Symbol is now like the draw card core of it. And it's something that you just have to wonder. The thing that's very weird about banning Piano, because the Descendant of the King unison, without a doubt, missing it is like a pretty big deal because of what it offers the deck. The ability to regenerate life is also a very good thing, and it had a board wipe. Obviously, the auto effect is completely stupid, which is why it's ban worthy in the first place. But they decided to let it live, and that's fine, right? Like, they let it live, and I have no qualms with that per se. Now, where it gets interesting is that if you look at Piano as a Demon Clan, the only thing aside from its card draw, so like if you replaced it with like another one drop that just hard netted you that one card and relied on other draw engines and effects to like supplement the advantage that you normally generate off of comboing in a card with Piano, like the only interesting thing about like Piano as a card is that it's just a Demon Clan name for Symbol if it gets comboed off or dies to go under a unison and net you a card. Because it serves like no purpose after that. And there's a point where like Piano is just not going to live, right? Like, I mean, like if you play against like black, it's gonna get warped. And that's what makes it like kind of difficult for me to say that the deck is entirely dead. Because like I said, if you just replaced the Piano with a hard one drop net searcher, I definitely see how KP could still be viable. But it's certainly not as easily consistent as it used to be. And Piano being a demon clan is that symbol generation of more advantage. So it's like, if there was another demon clan that like could search a card and be a demon clan name and you'd combo it off and then symbol be the primary like piece that you bring in, I could see KP still being a very relevant deck. Now, with the Unison being at 1, you know, I just have to say that U7 actually probably got buffed. Now, and this is moving into the section of like the best red decks. So like U7 being able to use the mass sand from another dimension, all my testing with that Unison in U7 is completely broken. So let me explain why. So the Gohan that you use to search your Unison is a 1-drop red sand that is also a U7. Because of that, if you're playing in the matchup where you know that Gohan's not going to live, so like let's say that you play against Cell, you just combo that card off after searching the top of for your Unison on the attack, if you're going second, of course. And then you have your Unison in your set. But what that means is that like it's pretty much guaranteed that card is not going to live. Now, it may live in the face of other cards that you play. And that's obviously relevant, right? Like, it may, you know what I'm saying? Because, like, if you play other cards and your opponent perceives them as a threat, they might pop it over that, like, your 1-drops. Although they play 4 dormant, so your 1-drop's probably going to die anyway. But point being is that now that Mass Saiyan has the ability to draw a card and dump a U7 to the drop area. And the way this basically pans out is every turn you're almost guaranteeing another U7 name in there, still netting advantage and drawing a card, and that Unison gets like an attack buff based on the number of sands on your board. And so when you start counterplaying, like, and playing Goku and you play Vegeta, right, you're gonna, like, start giving that Unison some, like, you know, decent attack power on top of everything else. So, like, whereas KP was just the hard draw, it wasn't actually facilitating your dump engine in order to get you, 1, more cards for your Sparking 20, but 2, initiating your Awaken faster. Now Awakening is more consistent than it was previously before, but obviously trade-off being you have that broken effect where, you know, whenever your opponent counters, something blows up. So, like, in the long run, that Unison still probably generates advantage in some sense, obviously for you in that regard, which is, like, obviously good. But, like the Mass Saiyan, like, from another dimension Unison is still super busted, like, for what it is. You get a power buff Unison that can attack. You get the draw, and then its minus ability, which I totally forget at this point in time. But, like, as it stands for a Unison, the testing has been immaculate. And I'll bring you guys an updated list. That's one of the deck profiles I plan on bringing you. I plan on bringing you my Cell deck, U7, and then Dark Brawly. I don't really know where I want to take Dark Brawly yet. I'm still kind of trying to mull over whether or not I want to play like an overwhelm spam like I used to with like the Demigra and whatnot, or I want to switch gears to something different, to like a more control, uh, removal heavy-esque stun Dark Brawly. But either way, point being is that U7 might actually have gotten a buff, and here's the thing, you can still play the one Unison plus the 4 others. And so what I've done, and I'll just say this, the new 18 promo, like, expect, in my opinion, to see that played more. Because now I think the skillless version might be the best one, and the 2-drop Unison is still, build is still better than the 3-drop Unison. Committing 3 energy to Jiren and having to awaken against aggressive archetypes just is not good. It doesn't feel good. The only good thing about the Jiren build is that it's seriously handles Unison decks better. But when we enter this next format, the 2-drop Unison build is going to be a lot more important against Agents of Destruction and other spam decks. And we still get to maintain and keep that while sticking to our normal strategy, and in some ways enhancing and making our strategy to awaken faster, getting our cards online faster. And it just really, it's really good. It's just super strong. So, yeah. Now, coming out in set 17, and I am super excited for this. So, I picked up the GT SCR before it spiked to $1 billion. I don't know what it's sitting at right now. And basically every GT card that ever existed is a common, including the promo card, pans that play themselves for free, and then buff stuff. I am so looking forward to this deck. GT is my favorite stuff, SS4, all of it is my favorite. The only reason why I don't play SS4 esque leaders per se is because one, I want a black SS4 Gogeta Xeno leader or something. But two, the black SS4 one, I am not a fan of its inherent strategy. I just don't think it offers anything but a whole bunch of pressure that I don't particularly care to use. I just don't see how you could justify using that leader over a leader like Vegeks or the Black Mass Saiyan leader. Both of those decks inherently, to me, offer more than what that leader does. And while you can say, well, no, you can do more with your Overrealm with that one, the problem is that that's almost irrelevant in a lot of matchups, because though all 3 of those decks do the same thing, but there's an inherent consistency advantage to the other 2 versus that one. So, let me give you an example, and not to talk about all the black leaders again, but the Vegeks recycle engine basically makes Mill cry. So if you sit down against a Mill deck, they just basically auto lose because their main win strategy doesn't work, and oh, you're an aggro deck. So that's a thing. And then the inverse of this is with the other leaders, especially the Black Mass Saiyan one. The problem with playing a Mill deck is when you mill your SCR or, your big power bomb pieces, and that leader's ability on the backside to pick it mill 3, burst whatever, play in for free whatever, and then pick up from your drop area a really powerful card that you either A, comboed on your last defensive turn, or comboed offensively, and it gives your leader 5k, it just helps in aggro. Now, obviously, Goku gets double strike and then a power buff, right? So it's not where the card's bad and it sets 4 back, but the idea of bringing 4 back to your drop area is almost irrelevant when Trunks now exists. And so it's you get a dual attack deflect card that basically puts 6 back, and you don't even really need to worry about it anymore. So it's kind of apples and oranges. But I mean, there's nothing like milling, for example, an SS4 thwarting or your SCR, and picking it straight back up out of the drop area, right? It's basically you searched it. And that's just crazy. It's honestly just nuts. But, going back to the topic, I love GT, so I'm actually excited that there's going to be a deck that is GT oriented that is also good. It's looking to me like the top deck out of set 17, and then Cooler is like closely right behind it. I'd probably say like if GT is S tier, Cooler is like S minus. And then other top red decks to play Jiren. Jiren is getting a very interesting promo card that kind of heavy minuses you initially, but you can also kind of like play in cards for free that you normally wouldn't. And so it's kind of meh. It just depends. And then Cooler Mill is like the other top red leader that I'd be looking at right now if I were other people. So that pretty much does it for video 1. Thank you so much for watching. Look forward to video 2, which I'm going to make following this one, so I'm going to be basically sitting in the same spot. I hope you guys enjoy it, and I will catch you guys in the next one. This is Alex from TCG Discussions, signing off. Laters.